The report vindicates me because there was no contract steering and there was no influence. What they tried to say, if anyone followed this with a real degree of seriousness, they tried to say, and Mr. Gray in one of his campaign literature said that Adrian Fenty's hand-picked awardee of a contract. That's a lie. Adrian Fenty didn't pick anybody. This whole time where they've been smearing the reputations of real good people who do real good work has been unfounded. So when they come and say, we can have a discussion on if you thought this should be charged this amount or we should charge that amount, that's a reasonable discussion. But it's not reasonable for you to take your position as a public official and then lie on private business people. I'm a business person. All I do every day is try to figure out how I'm going to get paid and pay by people who work for me and do a good job for. No, I didn't overcharge. I didn't overcharge. But what I'm trying to say is, do not smear somebody by the accusation. That was the attempt. The attempt was to say you overcharged and didn't have the facts.
Yeah, well, let me.
I understand that a copy of the report was given to you several weeks ago, and you had an opportunity to respond.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you responded in writing to the charge of the issue of overcharging and your qualifications?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let me say this. Mr. Skinner's response to the child investigation report will be posted online on his website. What's your website?
SinclairSkinner.com.
Okay. Secondly, Mr. Skinner went through 3 or 4 depositions and at least 2 public hearings. Now, in response to the part of the report that indicated that he overstated his qualifications, it's simply not true. He's given them his professional resume, and he has stated repeatedly that he was qualified for the work. In connection to the RFQ that you're really referring to, the RFQ indicated that there were certain people who worked for Liberty Engineering. And Mr. Trout suggests that that was not true. These were separate independent contractors, and if you look at the report, you will see that attached to that RFQ, if you look at the RFQ, at the back of the RFQ response, you'll see the resumes of these individuals that Mr. Trout says didn't work for Liberty. It's clear on their resumes that they either had their own companies or they worked for their own companies. So at best, the response was at best confusing. But let's be real clear, the government who received that information, they knew very well that Liberty Engineering, these 10 or 15 people that were going to be part of the project team were not members or not employees of Liberty Engineering. No one tried to mislead anyone. It may have been confusing. Now, in regard to your other question about overcharging, I've said it before and I'll say it again, okay? When you are, every government contractor, every project manager is allowed a markup. And this project, this art of the deal as I call it, was no different than any other government contract. Contractors, general contractors, lead contractors are allowed a markup to manage these subcontractors. This was nothing unusual, and there's nothing more to investigate about it. The other thing the Trout report says that you got to be real clear on too. The Trout report didn't blame my clients in regard to, didn't blame my clients alone for alleged, quote, overcharging because of their markup. They blamed the government as well for not negotiating a better deal. It's right there in the report. So if you're going to sit there and charge and claim my client with any wrongdoing, which no one did, nowhere in the report does it say they were guilty of anything wrongdoing, and these referrals have nothing to do with the contracting process, then spread the blame, because this was a negotiated deal, and the finding of this report is that the government may not have negotiated the best deal, but there was no wrongdoing on the part of the government or my clients. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I can't tell you why Mr. Kareem isn't here, but you will be hearing from him very soon.
And I want to say again, we didn't overcharge the government. We did very good work, and we did it in a very quick amount of time. If you look in their investigation, this is one of the things we pointed out when we were reviewing it. They went to our competitors and say, are these prices good prices? Well, I guess if you talk to a competing news station and say, did you do a good report or not, they might say we could have done a better job, or we could have provided more services for that. What I'm saying is you're going to have people disagree, but what they can't say is that anybody protested our award. Now, that's a fact. Out of all this that people talk about what happened, not one person protested our award. Normally, you'll have this happen with government contracts. People will send the contract out and they'll feel like they got a bum rap. What they'll do, they'll protest. Hey, I can do better than them. This is not right. That didn't happen. Again, the investigation part of this, I still don't have a problem with it. I think it was a misallocation of resources. They want to investigate something. They need to investigate why these companies like Turner, Forrest, these large companies can keep doing all this business and not employ anybody in the District of Columbia. Now that's something to really spend some time. How do they keep getting contracts? But to say my small CBE somehow, out of all the contracts we bid on, didn't win, the one we win had to be something wrong. It's just, again, a part of a smear campaign they use not to really attack me, but to get at the former mayor. To somehow to soil him and try to make it seem like he was involved in something that he wasn't involved in. And now we're looking at what's going on right now and all the things that you're finding out about council members. And we even got council members who their chief of staff plead guilty of taking money. Now listen, they talking about me and how much I charge as a markup, but they got somebody who's a chief of staff who said, yes, I took the money, yes, I did it, and it was wrong. And we're now spending time talking about SUV colors instead of talking about criminal wrongdoing that's been admitted to, and how does some chief of staff who's only been in the country for a few years somehow was the mastermind behind something like this and not ask Mr. Jim Graham what did he have something to do with? There should be a press conference. It should have been that should be the front page, not Mr. Gray paying somebody.
It's okay to mark up a survey 400%.
No, it's not fair. No one should ever mark up a survey 400%. That's wrong. You shouldn't do that. I disagree, and I didn't do that, and I wouldn't be part of anything like that. But there goes the smear campaign. What they'll do, they'll take two pieces of information with nothing in between and say, here's one price, here's this price. See, they must have did something wrong. Now, again, let me be very clear. When you have vendors, you might have vendors that may charge you a certain amount for providing a certain service. Well, there's a host of other services that go along with that final product.
So can you explain what that 400% markup? What did the tax?
I just said it wasn't a $400 markup. I mean, 400% markup.
Okay, then you'll have to ask Mr. Trout how he came up with 400%.
Right, that's
because
Tell me what the markup was and what we got for it.
well, he got part of his report right, vis-a-vis that there was a markup, but it wasn't 400%.
No,
the markup was between 4 and 9%, which is standard when you're managing contracts in a government contract setting.
Yeah, our markup was the typical standard markup. But what you got for it was a lot of work done in a very short period of time on projects that's still been delayed right now. What ended up happening, we had a competitive process where we bid, those projects were taken from us and then sole source. Now, just follow this logic. There was people who were upset with the mayor for whatever reason. They saw this as an opportunity to get some type of gain. They took the contract. Only the second time in the history of the council had they voted down to support a contract. They took those contracts that were bidded, and read the report, they said it was bidded properly, and then gave it to sole source to the people they wanted to have it. They took the work we did and then sole sourced it to somebody else without a bid. The dollars that you're talking about, the taxpayers paying, the projects that we had with a fair bid process as vindicated in this report was then sole source. If there needs to be an investigation, what happened with the Parks and Recs that was supposed to get developed? What happened with the little kids that's supposed to be playing in Rosedale right now? Nothing. Because the money was wasted, this time has been wasted, and at the end of the day, the people in the district aren't served because people are using smear campaigns to get themselves elected. They're doing a whole bunch of other shenanigans to get elected, and now I'm having a press conference. I'm relieved. I'm happy. I'm probably gonna go on a trip somewhere. I am. And I feel good about it, man. Look. I'm going to the Dominican Republic. I'm going to invite you with me too, sister.
One of the constant, Sinclair, one of the constant headlines during all this is always about former.
Well, they need to get that fire truck down there.
So it's former fraternity friends. Is there a message in wearing the fraternity jacket to come here today?
Well, I tell you what, it was a little nippy outside, so I had to put on my favorite jacket. It's the 100-year anniversary of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. So I feel good about that I belong to an organization that's done so much work that's good in the community, and our fundamental purpose is achievement. So I'm gonna keep on achieving. I know it's a little cold, my hands are a little cold, but I wore the jacket in order to stay warm, and I feel good about it.
Let's just take one more. Just one last question, okay?
I was referring to Ted Losa and Jim Graham.
Now,
I said it fast. I'm talking about Jim Graham and Ted Losa, a poor immigrant fella who probably worked his behind off, who ended up being a fall guy, to somebody getting some money for taxi drivers. I think it's a shame, and as a person who pays taxes, I feel very uncomfortable about that, and I think somebody should take some time. You gentlemen see me, this brother right here seems like he knows facts. You need to look into how did Ted Loza end up with the bag.
Okay.
That just don't look right.
But let's stay focused.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Okay?
apologize.
Listen,
You cover this minority business stuff. One of the things it says in the report is you took this money to do the work, and then you did little of the work yourself and engaged non-CBE firms to perform the surveying and civil engineering.
That's great. I have a lifelong dedication, first of all, to the CBE program. I first got into the CBE program back in like 2001. What we did that was very different than any time before. Most of the time, you have these large companies from out of town take CBEs and make them their subs. They end up being the one that determines what gets done, how it gets done, and who does it. What we decided to do was, look, we were going to have some of these larger firms be our subs, so we could dictate what happens and how it got done. So what we really did was we really took advantage of the CBE program to do what it was meant to be, and that's to empower the CBEs to take control of the projects, and that's what we did.
let me thank you all for being here. I think you can, Mr. Skinner, be available for further questions, and I will too. Thanks. Thank you very much.
That came for the funeral.